Welcome into the latest edition of PL Express. It's Murray and Janusz Michallik here, as always. I have a feeling there'll be a lot of talk about the title today. We'll also touch a little bit of Manchester United, talk transfers and Pochettino to Chelsea as well. But let's start with that Arsenal game. We saw what happened against Brighton. And obviously, Janusz, it's something that we talk about every week, this title race. And I know that you've said in the last show here, and particularly over the weekend on the coverage there, that this is not a failure. You don't want to hear that word when it comes to Arsenal. But do you genuinely believe that every Arsenal fan will see it your way?
No, I mean, it's a strong word, failure, isn't it? That's why I don't like to use it, because I have a lot of respect for Mikel Arteta, for the team and what they've done this season. And it's hard. I think, I mean, be probably nicer for a show if I did say it that way. But I think it's a disappointment. That's what I would say. And I think you and I have talked about it, Kate, didn't we? That this opportunity may not come around for a long time. I mean, we all thinking that this is, I think even Mikel Arteta maybe said that this is like second or third step in his 5-step plan, whatever it might have been. And I think this team is going to continue to develop. I truly believe in that. But so is everybody else. And to be at the top of the league for such a long time and to see how it unraveled, right? I mean, we've seen the results, in the last couple of months. You have to say that if it's not a failure, at the very least, is an opportunity missed, because this was a real chance for an informed Arsenal football club to win a Premier League title, and they let that slip away.
Was this their chance, though? Because you look at City. City can lose some of their biggest name players and keep coming back. We've seen how many titles they've won and look like they're on course to win this next title as well over recent years. They just managed to keep grinding out the results when they need them, not even grinding them out a lot of the time, comfortable wins for them. Even when they lose some of their biggest name players, they just still seem to be able to do it. So is that a concern for Arsenal now? Like, can they go again? Was this their opportunity?
It was, yeah. I mean, it'll be a concern. I think on the flip side, you tell yourself, if you Pep Guardiola, how often can you keep remotivating this team? And maybe, look, I mean, I'm sure he didn't, he doesn't want some of these players to go. He's respectful. He's always said it, that if somebody wants to go, he's not going to keep them. I truly believe him, and he's that sort of a manager. The question will be, again, even if Gundogan leaves, Pep Guardiola will have other players. I truly believe that Manchester City are going to be winning this title for at least 2 or 3 or 4 years. I mean, they're that good. For Arsenal, the big question is, can they get 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 players of that caliber, world-class leaders? Because, when you have this development, when you have this project, you can only go so far with the young players. Younger players develop, and I think this is going to be a good lesson for them as well, because you always learn something. If you want to call it failure, go ahead. But, I mean, there are a lot of players in that dressing room, I think, Kate, that will recognize the fact that this was an opportunity lost, and they'll learn from that. The biggest question is, can they get those 2, 3 key players? Another center back, because I truly believe they need it. Jakub Kiwior, obviously, I know him well, and I think he's done okay, but it's going to take some time. They absolutely need a leader, the Ruben Dias or Van Dijk, that type of player when they came into their respective teams. Another central midfielder, I mean, top notch. And yes, another striker, because I think that I feel a little bit indifferent about Gabriel Jesus. Pep Guardiola maybe knew that he truly isn't really maybe that number 9. And I understand that Arsenal can play in different ways, but I do think they need somebody top notch. And maybe, just maybe, Arsenal can fight Manchester City for the title.
What you're asking for more than one thing there, because you're asking for a player in that position, aren't you? But then you're asking them to also have the necessary leadership skills.
Well,
so it's like twofold.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. I mean, those top players, we call them top players because, I guess we overuse that word, so maybe I shouldn't. But, you need somebody that understands how to win. And I know it's not going to be easy. They're probably not going to get 3 great players, right? We've talked before the show, somebody like Jude Bellingham. He's young. He's obviously, being wanted by Real Madrid. Maybe that's already done as we hear it right now. But what I'm saying is that Mikel Arteta needs to bring those type of players into this club for the development to take place.
But what makes those type of players, Janusz, just in your opinion, is it just something that you're born with, or is it the experience you've had? Because there are players in this squad, obviously not many of them, but players who have been through a league title win, that it hasn't happened for them this season. So what makes a player that leader?
I think it's the experience. I don't truly believe that you're born with that. At least I don't think that, right? I mean, so the experiences of being at other clubs and maybe being that person, being that player that everybody's looks after, or maybe in times of trouble, you've mentioned sometimes you have to grind it out. And I think, to be fair, again, Arsenal has done it. That's why I'm again on the fence. I know you don't like it a little bit because I don't think it's a failure because look where they were before. But
no, I don't think it's a failure. I don't like you on the fence, though, obviously, either, Janusz. But you cannot deny that the last 7 Premier League results, which we're looking at now, 2 wins in 7 games there. And obviously, there are games where you can go, okay, fair enough. Maybe Liverpool and Anfield, Manchester City at home, that 4-1 loss. But then when you look at some of the others, obviously that win over Newcastle was really great to be able to do that at St. James's Park. But those draws against West Ham and Southampton, you can't help but look at them and question them at this stage. We knew we'd be looking back at them if it came to this.
Absolutely. I mean, as I've mentioned, and that Newcastle game was the type of game that showed already some of the experience with the squad, because that's not an easy place as we know it. And that was a tremendous performance. It was a performance based on character. So that character is already there. But what's unacceptable is that result against Brighton, because we can sit here. I love Brighton, I love De Zerbi, but I mean, this is a team that lost to Everton 5-1. I mean, you just can't.
But is that why it's unacceptable? If they'd have blown Everton out of the park, like off the park, would this have been an acceptable loss?
Look, I'm guessing here, but after that performance from Manchester City, which these players have watched, I think deep down somewhere they knew it. They just knew it. Maybe they knew it ahead of the game. They knew that those points lost already, even the win against Chelsea and Newcastle is going to be short, because you look at a Manchester City and you watch them play and you say, my goodness, I mean, this is impossible. We have to run the table and then hope that City somehow is going to have 1 or 2 bad games. It's just not going to happen. And I do think that players have that in the back of your mind. I mean, we can sit here and lie and say all the right things, but, as a player, sometimes you have a feel for it. When the team's got it. But most importantly, you have to hope that the other team may fold. And I think Arsenal, ahead of this game, knew that this is the end of the line.
Did they honestly expect Everton to get something off City just because of that previous result? Do you really think that?
No, that's what I mean. I think they knew ahead of their game against Brighton that it was over. I mean, I don't know about you.
So even ahead of City's game, they might as well have known it was over.
No, they knew before this game, after watching Manchester City deal with Everton in such way, right?
But they should have known that, right?
Right.
That shouldn't come into it.
Well, that's what I mean. Yesterday I watched them concede goals. Did you see our reaction after any of the goals at home in front of their home supporters? I mean, it was all Brighton. I mean, Brighton looked absolutely incredible. What does Brighton have to play for? I mean, yes, there's Europe and all that, but I mean, Arsenal should be just as motivated, if not more motivated than Brighton. And I see 1 goal going in, nothing, no change of tempo, no reaction from the team. The biggest reaction was Mikel Arteta sprinting up and down and trying to get his team going. So look, I mean, it's an experience, and maybe that's going to be the learning curve for the years to come. I hope for Arsenal fans, but I think there's always 1 or 2 or 3 players out there that can help you with that, and I think they were missing in the game yesterday.
We'll get to that in a minute. When do you think these Arsenal players knew for sure it was over then? Because you can say if they were watching that City result, obviously playing before them, but as we're saying, they must have known that was going to be the result it was if they were realistic.
Game, I think. I mean, the manner in which Manchester City dealt with Arsenal that day, it was, I mean, men against boys. It really was. And, you may be thinking, but you're still first. We always talk about two games in hand. You still have to win them. And then reality comes in. Manchester City continues on winning. They're winning their games in hand. And then, boom, after some soft results, Arsenal had really no say in that game. I mean, it was clear for everybody that Manchester City are a better team. And then you're kind of waiting, right? Are they going to slip up or not? So I think that game in particular told everybody who the better side is and who's going to win the title.
So you talk about the players that they need to bring in, and we've talked about the profile it needs to be. Who do you think you'd like to see in this Arsenal side next season that you feel would be able to give it a good shot again?
Well, I mean, I think I'm going to have to repeat myself, but somebody like Declan Rice in the center of the pitch. I mean, you can see that he's a winner. He understands that position. I don't know if he's going to end up going back to, going to Chelsea or Arsenal, but that's sort of a player. We're going to be talking about McAllister. We're going to be talking about Caicedo. Maybe, in terms of McAllister, he just won the World Cup. Caicedo obviously hasn't tasted that sort yet, but it's the type of player that I think there's going to be 3 or 4 teams bidding over to get them in. So those type of players. In terms of a striker, I haven't even really thought about it. I wish I had an answer for you. I mean, it's easy to pick out some of the best strikers in the world, but the big question is, are they going to feel that this project is worth it? Don't know.
That is my question to you. Have Arsenal shown enough this year with the fact that they did keep it as tight as they did for so long, and the way Mikel Arteta is with his players and the way they play? Have they done enough this year to be beating out other sides to the signature of some of these big players that will be available?
I think they could be. I mean, it's still Arsenal after all. It's London, which makes a difference. As we all know, they make good money there. I mean, Arsenal has, even if they, if the Arsenal supporters were asking the owner to buy players, and when they didn't, the one thing for sure is that they paid their players well. So that's important, obviously. So it's possible, but top type of players go to Barcelona and Real Madrid, right? I mean, if those call, then you don't go anywhere else. But everybody else, call them 1AA, 1B, whatever you want to call them. I think it's possible, of course, because the project is looking good, and most importantly, Mikel Arteta looks like a manager that can deliver it.
Okay, definitely showed that for much of the season here as well. If he gets the players he needs, do you genuinely believe that with the might of this City side, they could challenge again?
Well, they showed it that they could. So I mean, if you get 2 or 3 quality players, and remember, this is 2 or 3. I'm talking about a little bit of an experience or proven players. But he's going to have to get probably another 2 or 3 or 4, because the depth of that squad is what probably worries not just Mikel Arteta and Arsenal. It worries everybody, because you look at Manchester City. I mean, not only they have the quality in terms of rotation, but they continue to rotate and nothing changes. Usually rotation can get you out of rhythm sometimes. You can lose points because of that, right? Because, you can say, yeah, they're unfamiliar, they haven't played together. When I watch Manchester City, it doesn't really matter who plays. There's a certain level they don't go below, or not very often. So that would be a worry for not just Arsenal, but for a lot of the teams, to get sort of the squad now to deal with the Champions League and, of course, all the other competitions as well.
As you mentioned, they are on their way to a 5th title in 6 seasons, Manchester City. What does bring a stop to anything like what we've seen from this Pep Guardiola team?
The only thing that can stop this machine for me is the lack of motivation. Doing it over and over. And I understand. I mean, if you win, you want to continue winning. It's not all that hard. And I think Manchester United, Sir Alex Ferguson, for many years have shown that. Liverpool, in my younger years, was doing it as well. But I don't think it's that easy. So I don't know. Again, obviously a refresh you've mentioned, because it's absolutely incredible. The David Silva, if Gundogan leaves, or Cancelo, I mean, 1 or 2 players aren't going to change the way Manchester City are playing. But it's Pep Guardiola going back to a lot of these players and asking them for this top level, game in and game out. And we've seen a little bit of that happening with Liverpool, right? I mean, that cycle where just that motivation. They fought Manchester City so close. They won it finally that one season, 98, 97 points, and then things fell apart. I mean, these players didn't become bad overnight. And I know Liverpool has had a lot of injuries, but I just feel that they gave absolutely everything they had. They accomplished their goal in winning the Premier League, obviously Champions League for Liverpool as well, in the last 5-6 years. But that's the only thing I can think of that Manchester City that could undo the what they have right now. Nothing.
Yeah, I wonder. Obviously, there's so much talk about the treble that's there for the taking if they want it, if they can do it this year. Manchester City, if they are to secure that, do you think that would be let's say, the cherry on the top for Pep Guardiola, and that would be something that he's like, okay, I've achieved what I needed to achieve. Now, maybe even the players think of it that way, and that could affect motivation because they've already done it now.
It could. I mean, winning breeds more winning. I mean, players are like that, right? I mean, it is the biggest league in the world. All eyes around the world are on the Premier League. So I suppose if you're a player for Manchester City or top clubs, I mean, I think you can, Pep Guardiola can find ways of motivating. But you're quite right. I mean, imagine if they were to win the Champions League, obviously they'd have to go through Real Madrid. I mean, that in itself is incredible. Then it's either Inter or Milan. I mean, two clubs that have won Champions League on numerous occasions. And then say you beat your city rivals, Manchester United in the final of the FA Cup. My goodness, it's not easy, right? I mean, it's not easy to say, okay, let's do this again. But, as you've said, they've done it 5 out of the last 6 years. They are winners. We've talked about what some of the other teams maybe are missing. And it's just, I mean, it's hard unless you're there. I mean, I've played this game, obviously nowhere near to what these players are doing. But when you're surrounded by so many great players that just don't allow you to bring the level down, I mean, it must be something, right? I mean, think about their training. I mean, these players can do everything. So every little thing is being made fun of. If you can make a simple pass, I don't even want to talk about simple passes, but I mean, these players motivate each other. Pep is one thing, but I think there's that you always want to get better. I can only imagine that you go out there and you see De Bruyne and you see Haaland so young and you see Grealish and you see how much he's grown during the season. And I think they push each other and force each other to be better. And I think we're lucky enough to watch that over the weekend.
I think what you just said shows respect to both of the sides there, Janusz. I think we're hearing a lot of ex-pros and even those who've won the Premier League saying it's a lot harder than it might seem just to people watching. It is such a hard thing to do to win a league title, which shows you how hard that's been for Arsenal, but also shows you the respect that you have to have for a team like Manchester City, that they continue to be able to keep pushing into the end of the season and to finish it with the top honours. I suppose that's a great point, making out that it's obviously very, very hard to do so, which is why many managers say winning the league is a lot tougher than winning some of the big cup competitions, right?
And then, I've done it before and I'll do it again. And you have to have a manager like Pep Guardiola. I mean, we all have our likes and, I remember people complain. Maybe I even actually complain about, the tiki-taka too much. But he's learned too, right? I mean, Manchester City plays a little bit different than his Barcelona played, maybe even Bayern Munich as well. But in order to make all of that tick, you have to be special, right? And we've talked about Jose Mourinho in the special one. I don't know. I think what he does at Manchester City, to me, it's incredible because I can only imagine how difficult it must be, not just to pick a team, to make sure that everybody's on side, make sure that everybody's motivated and hungry to do it over and over and over again in such a way where just about every player has got to be coming to you, knocking on the door and saying, why am I not playing? I look at Ziyech. Sorry, Mahrez. I've done this before, by the way. I look at Riyad Mahrez and I say to myself, how is this guy not in the starting lineup after the hat trick against Sheffield United? But it just, team comes first. We saw what Bernardo Silva did to Bayern Munich. He didn't do that, by the way, in the game against Real Madrid. So it's going to be interesting to see if there's going to be changes midweek when City faces Real Madrid at home as well. But it's got to be an impossible task, and to sort of sell your brand of football in such way. That part may be easy because everybody wants to play, in a good way. But this team is a little bit different. I think we can all agree.
Before we move on from City, let's talk about how special Ilkay Gundogan is and what should happen next with this player.
What should happen? What's going to happen, right? I mean, Pep Guardiola has been very, very honest. He's communicated to his people that he wants to keep him. Of course, why would you want to lose a player like that? David Silva needed to leave too. He wanted to go back to Spain or whatever motivated him as well. Maybe it's a level where you just feel that it's you need that extra motivation. You want to see something different. Although I don't know how winning everything it gets gets, you don't get tired of that, I suppose. But I think if Gundogan wants to stay, there's of course a place for him. He's an excellent player. He showed that in the last couple of games. What does he get? 4 goals in a couple. I mean, he's been absolutely tremendous in the Premier League, and that's not an easy midfield to find yourself in, of course. And he saw a little bit of bench because everybody sees that when you play for Manchester City, but. For me, I would have stayed. But again, we're hearing Barcelona. There's something special. It doesn't matter if Barcelona are great or not. That one day you can sit down when it's all said and done and you say to yourself, I play for Barcelona. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's as simple as that.
Yeah, obviously they're helping their cause out. They've just won La Liga over the weekend, so that's going to be a little tick for them too. Well, a big tick actually for how long it's been. Let's talk about Manchester United. Last week after we came off air, Janusz, we'd forgotten to mention their scoring record or lack thereof when it comes to teams in the top 7. They're the lowest scorers among them. And then no Marcus Rashford at the weekend. So we were already made to look at this even closer as to who is going to step up. Martial and Garnacho got the goals here. So let's first of all touch on the problem of the fact that they haven't been scoring as much as the other sides around them.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a team problem. As I've told you before, I think I don't worry about it as much because I think Ten Hag is ruthless. I mean, he knows exactly what he's doing and he won't care what he needs to do. And sometimes coaches have, there's always a player or two where maybe their time is gone, but they'll give you that second, third, fourth, fifth opportunity, and that. I mean, you always want to play for somebody like that. He doesn't give me that impression. So, look, Marcus Rashford has been scoring, so that's a bonus. But for everybody else, not to be, I think we all know. We see it. I mean, okay, I wish. I mean, there are receipts for that because I loved Weghorst. I remember him in Bundesliga, and he seemed to always find a way to score. I often wonder why. And here, does he? He doesn't even have a goal, does he? In the Premier League, I don't think. But anyway, you just have to buy. We've talked about Harry Kane. Whatever it is, I'd spend every money because he is a winner. He's hungry. Obviously, he showed consistently that he scores goals when Spurs were very good and when they're not so good, like they are right now. So does that solve everything? Probably not. I think Ten Hag's going to have to, in my opinion, find other ways. I think there are players there, even if it's Eriksen, if it's Bruno Fernandes, if it's Jadon Sancho, those players are going to have to live up to the expectations because that's the only way. You can't spend yourself out of trouble like Manchester United are in right now. It's just not going to happen. Even Harry Kane, he's going to get, his share, obviously, but I still don't know if that's enough. I think the contribution's got to come from a lot of different places.
So in the meantime, Alejandro Garnacho from the bench. You mentioned Sancho. He's been struggling for form. We'll keep an eye on Rashford's fitness as well. Garnacho coming back at the right time. This could be a massive opportunity for him. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it could be. He's still very young. Again, I think he's going to continue to fight for his place. I think Manchester United and Ten Hag recognize. We just spoke about Manchester City. You want to create that competitive environment. That's the only way you can win it in the top league. I mean, it's just you're not going to. We've talked about Arsenal, right? I mean, part of the reason, of course, we've mentioned it before, but part of the reason may be tiredness. I mean, these guys have played pretty much with 13, 14 players, and you see that you can't do that and compete with Manchester City, who rotate 5, 6, 7 players just about every weekend, or even if it's just 3 or 4 players, something that Arsenal, even Liverpool, when healthy, they can't afford to do that. So I think with Manchester United, I think if you look at Garnacho, let's wait and see. I haven't seen enough. I mean, obviously he's had an injury. I don't know if, I'm thinking here, Garnacho is going to solve the problem for Manchester United tomorrow. They're going to have to get players who are competing to get into the squad, who are never absolutely sure that they're going to be there, with the exception of maybe somebody like Marcus Rashford.
Let's cast it forward a little bit. We will get to Pochettino in just a moment, but I want to talk about some of the big names that we're hearing in the transfer window. We've even heard Roberto De Zerbi knowing that he's not going to be keeping hold of some of his star players next season. So we keep hearing Alexis McAllister, Caicedo. What do you think these guys should do? Would you like to see those guys go to Liverpool, Janusz?
I would take them both. I'm not giving anything away here about Liverpool, but no, I mean, look, I mean, they're not going to get both. I'm still wondering which one would be better. It's not like, it's a bad thing, but McAllister is an incredibly intelligent player. So is Caicedo. I don't want to incline that he isn't, but I almost think that Caicedo, with his power, his strength, would be better. And just the fact that we're even seeing him at right back, if Trent is going to be playing a little bit more central, who knows? Maybe they can rotate somehow. So I think one of them will go to Liverpool, and we're hearing a lot about Alexis McAllister, that he is the target. He's close. I don't know if that's true, but it'd be silly for Liverpool not to have a go at one or both. I just don't think that realistically you can get both. So one will be at Liverpool. The other one can have his pick. I mean, we've mentioned Arsenal. I mean, Manchester United wouldn't say no to that, because they obviously need it. Ten Hag recognizes the fact that with Fred, McTominay, you're probably not going to get it right. Casemiro's not getting much younger, and I'm still not convinced that from time to time we see Eriksen and Bruno Fernandes in that midfield. That's a little bit too soft for me. I think out of necessity more than that's the way Ten Hag wants to play. But an engine other than Casemiro would probably be welcome at Old Trafford.
So we're playing fantasy football. You get to choose which player goes to Liverpool and which player goes to Manchester United. If it were to work out that way, who goes where?
Ooh. Both would want Caicedo, probably. So let's keep it simple. I mean, McAllister is going to go to Liverpool, and Caicedo either Arsenal or Manchester United. I mean, Chelsea's always going to be mentioned, I suppose. So that's also a possibility. I mean, only the rich can afford those type of players.
Hey, let's talk about goalkeepers. What have you made about the talk of Emi Martinez going to Manchester United?
Yeah, I still think De Gea is going to stay where he is. I really
should he stay where he is? Should they keep De Gea?
I mean, he's hot and cold. We've seen in the last couple of weeks the best of David De Gea, and obviously if he wants to stay and take a pay cut, because that's what it's going to take. I mean, I almost forgot that he makes, it's not like I want to look in his wallet, but 360 some thousand pounds a week. I mean, that is absolutely crazy. But if I'm honest, I mean, he's had tough seasons, but he's done so much for this Manchester United, even this season. I guess, I mean, I could buy into the fact that, playing out of the back, if Ten Hag, obviously, we've seen him, we know where he comes from. We know that that's very important in Holland and the way they play football. I think the type of players that Manchester United have, it's something that he hasn't been great, obviously. So, I mean, if that's going to decide it, then, Emi Martinez is a little bit better at that. But I don't know how do you solve this, because I just don't.
A little bit better at what?
Playing, with his feet, obviously, and we've seen that in the World Cup as well. So, I mean, that would have to, De Gea would have to leave. There's no chance Emi Martinez comes to this. I mean, to Manchester United, knowing that De Gea is there, right? I mean, if he's going to move, he's going to ask to be number one. So, from everything that we've heard from Ten Hag, he sounds to me like he wants to keep De Gea. So I don't see how a player like Emi Martinez or any of the number ones in good clubs are going to come over for as long as De Gea is there.
Might he want to keep De Gea but make him fight for his place?
There was a young goalkeeper at Manchester United that came and thought that there's going to be a fight for it. He didn't win it, right, this season. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if you're going to ask De Gea to fight for his spot, take a pay cut, and know that Emi Martinez is there. That doesn't seem like something that's going to happen based on my experience. But anything's possible. 40 goals for Haaland. I didn't think that was possible. And you told me, fourth week of the season? And I didn't, I don't want to, I thought you were off that day a little bit, but maybe it was me.
Yeah. Don't worry, Janusz. I'm not an I told you so type of person. Only sometimes when I need to be. This isn't the case there. Mauricio Pochettino, what does this change for Chelsea? What does this mean for Chelsea?
Look, I mean, he knows the league. He knows the town very well. He's built a team and built that team to a Champions League final, right? And obviously, I think that one season they were second in the league, weren't they? So he's worked with young players. I think, Harry Kane benefited from him, and Heung-min Son, who was it just last year that I thought he was the best player in the league. He's got a lot of young players. He's got an owner that's not easy to work with, but he's used to that with Daniel Levy at Spurs. So, I mean, early signs tell me that he is a bit of a project man. I think for him to go across town and look at this, maybe he says, this is as bad as it's going to get, because nobody believed that Chelsea could be where they are right now. And seeing some of the players that are there and some that he's probably going to ask for, maybe he likes projects. Who knows? So I think he can organize this. I'll tell you this much: Chelsea is going to be much, much better next season than they are this season.
I missed one before we say goodbye. Adrien Rabiot to Manchester United. Thoughts?
Yeah, I was never a big fan, but I do have to say that he's been better this season. He's showed a little bit of leadership, I guess. Yeah, I don't see it though. No, I'd be very, very surprised. I know they've been after him now for a couple of seasons now, but I just don't see a need for that type of player. Having, Bruno who can play there, Eriksen. Yeah, I more engine, more power. I think so. I don't see it, even though everybody's talking about it.
Okay, thanks as always, Janusz, and thanks to everybody for watching us. We'll see you again next week.
Thank you very much for watching ESPN FC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis, and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.